Welcome to Innovation and Leadership. I'm Jess Larsen. On this episode, we've got Peter Schroeder. Peter, thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having me on.
So, kind of a fun combination. We really like on this show to get all sorts of different kinds of experts and see what success looks like in, special operations, building billion-dollar businesses, writing books, all sorts of things. But we don't often get people who are experts in multiple things themselves. So it's kind of fun. Peter's got a background in tech and music. I believe you built your first tech platform at like age 14 and then sold it. Is that right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. I was pretty young when I started out, for sure.
Can you explain what that one was?
Yeah, of course. So I've always been very tech minded, and when the internet kind of came around in the 90s, that was when I was around 14 in 96 or 7 or something like that. I had some friends who were really good at drawing, and I was like, well, there's this internet thing. Let's put your drawings online and see if people wants to view them. Or there wasn't really a big idea behind it. It was more just, let's just do it. Why not? But other people started sending me their art as well, and all of a sudden, it kind of just grew to become this community. And before I knew, it was the biggest art community on the internet in Scandinavia back in the right around the 2000s. And yeah, it just grew bigger, and then eventually, because I never really had any interest in that area myself, I was like, okay, now I'm a late teenager, and there's things that I'm more interested in, like DJing. So I sold that company to a competitor back then.
That's great. So I want to talk about both the DJing, multiple platinum and gold records, performing for up to 180,000 people, and then also tech, Telzio, with a kind of a new approach to telephones and telephone systems and remote workers, and instead of a per user payment account, kind of taking a different approach on things. And now, with hundreds of thousands of users there, you guys are having some big successes. So let's start on the music side. Explain how many platinum and gold records this is.
I actually don't know the exact number, because you don't really necessarily get them handed out unless you either discover that you were certified yourself, or your record label does, or your manager. But I think it's somewhere around 40 gold records, and I have around 20 platinum. It's plus minus.
And so for people who don't know the definitions of that, what certifies gold, what's platinum?
That actually changes quite a bit over the years. So it's all based on sales, or today streams, because that's the most valuable sale today. But the number that you have to sell to get a record, either platinum, gold, or multi-platinum, and you can get 3 times platinum for the same record, is really depending on that times or that period of time, what the sales are in general across all music, and it's controlled by IFPI, which is an international organization that basically keeps track of these kind of things, and they will certify you for it and say, hey, yeah, you sold enough to achieve this year. But again, that can change. So in the mid-2000s, it was a very different number than it was in the mid-90s, because Napster came around and the music industry changed a lot. So you all of a sudden you had to sell less than you did 10 years ago. But on the other hand, it's still representative of how much is sold in general in the world. So
yeah. In Los Angeles these days, but originally from Denmark, I've got a bunch of Scandinavian ancestors, great-great-grandpa from from Norway, and his wife, my great-great-grandma from Denmark. So feeling the Scandinavian love here.
Yep.
So performing in front of performing for up to 180,000 people. Can you explain that one?
No, I can't. It's kind of the whole thing about my whole life, my whole career. Things just kind of happen to me. I never plan. I never strive for something particular to achieve anything. It's all very small goals. and I just kind of take things as they come. Same thing with music. I started out very young. I have very musical parents that are, my mom, piano player, my dad, a drummer, was out on gigs every weekend when I was growing up. So it's definitely in my family, in my blood. And as I was growing up, all of a sudden, I decided, hey, I want to be a DJ. I saw someone at a school party or school dance, and I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. So I want to do that. And then I just started, playing for friends and family, at the birthday parties and these kind of things. And that kind of led to my first club gigs when I was 17. And from there on, I founded a band that went on tour with in Germany in the early 2000s. Had some big success with that. And I had started a record label at that point as well. Ran that for a few years. Eventually sold that to Sony Music, and then things just kind of happened. So yeah, playing for that many people, that was just one of the gigs I played back in 2012.
Where was that one?
In Las Vegas.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I think for today it'd be fun to actually go back and forth between music and tech, and I really think there's so much to be gained. Like my favorite people in innovation, IDEO or Richard Koch, the self-made billionaire, talks about you need to go to the distant part of the social system to come up with ideas that are not just the groupthink of everyone like you. So I'm really interested to hear like lessons from music that apply in technology and reverse. Can you explain a little bit about this idea of, you've been making technology solutions for Airbnb and Samsung and these big giant companies, and then realizing there wasn't a phone answer that you liked, and so you basically invented it yourself?
Yeah, but that's again, very much me in terms of things just kind of happen. Like I was working on a different project, and I needed a phone service where I could easily change menus when people called in. There's a phone menu, and there wasn't anything easy out of the box where I could just do that. So I kind of just built a little interface for it myself that I could use. And as I was doing that, I found out, well, this is kind of fun to play with, and maybe there's actually a product here. So I kept working on that, and eventually released a proof of concept kind of version of it, and people started signing up and using it. So it's very much out of need, everything I do, and it's very much just like what seems to be what I need to do at a certain time in life, and that goes for everything. So even when I was running my own record label, I was still coding the software to manage the artists and manage the releases, keeping track of everything, making sure that the promotion gets done right. And I'm very much into automation. I really don't like managing people. I'm not a manager. So I want to try and automate as much as possible so I can have as few people on a team as possible. And just anything that can be automated should be automated. And has really just been my mantra for everything I've done, both in music and tech.
Yeah. So, I brought up one of my favorite authors of all time, Richard Koch, wrote the 80-20 principle, self-made billionaire. I was really lucky to have him on the show. And to me, like, you must be employing some of those principles to be able to have hundreds of thousands of users with such few staff. Can you talk about maybe the unique ways you've approached building the business?
Yeah, I mean, again, automation is absolutely key. So that's one big part of it. I think the other part is also I treat the company as an enterprise, and I've done that since day one. So everything I do, every decision is, we might not be that many people, but I will pay for 100 licenses more than I need to get the enterprise features that I need. And that's really annoying. So that's also kind of what I've applied to Telzio as the business model is, there should be a fair playing field for all businesses, whether you are 20 employees or you are 2,000. You should still have access to the same basic features and functionality. And that's what we did with Telzio. There's other businesses out there that do the same, and I'm a big fan of that. Instead of having to limit certain things from businesses and basically limit their potential to succeed and keep them back, I think that's very unfair. So I think that's definitely part of it. And then, running the business in terms of staff, I really, like I said, I don't like managing. So I try to find someone who I don't have to manage. I try to find people who are really, really smart, pay them above average, and then make sure that they are really happy with what they do, and give them as much freedom to do what they feel like they want to do, and try to keep those kind of people on, because then you don't have to do everything yourself. Plus, you can't do everything yourself. You can't be an expert in everything. So hire those people that can do those things you can't, and then try to do that instead of spending your time micromanaging it.
Yeah. So can you give us an example? Like, how many more staff? Like, it seems like your competitors would have a multiple of your staff to do the same amount of business.
Oh yeah.
Like how many? Like, is it 2 to 1? Is it 20 to 1? How many more staff do you think your competitors have to get the same done?
It's probably 20 to 1.
Really?
Closer to 20 to 1. Yeah, for sure. Again, the platform, and we've been doing this for a while. I mean, we've been around for 10 years now, and we've been pretty much just focused on building the product, building a solid platform. We did that from ground up. So we own everything. We also in charge of, managing everything and building everything. So that also, gives us the options of making sure that we don't have to do manual things ourselves, rather than just basically have a little bit of oversight and making sure that we build new things and that they work. Which also means, we don't have downtime. Things just work. It's smooth sailing in a day-to-day. And then on top of that, comes, or that, basically allows us, I would say, to innovate and be first with features, rather than just waiting for someone that we are licensing software from to, build whatever we want to build. We can actually do it when we want, and we have the time to do it.
Interesting. So what's the elevator pitch for people who haven't been on the website, haven't watched the demo videos? How do you explain it?
And that's the hard part, right? Like I said, do what you're good at, and I'm not a good salesman. I'm still trying to find that perfect elevator pitch, and I think everyone is in business. It's hard, but I mean, we are a business communication solution. So if you have a business and you need to communicate with your businesses, we have the product for you, and I think that's pretty much every business that needs to talk to their customers, right? So we try to have a pretty broad range of features, and that works for all sizes of businesses, all different verticals. And then, of course, we're trying to innovate and make sure that we are first with the new things that and then see, the trends where things are going and what needs to be built in the future.
Yeah. So correct me here. I was just watching some of the videos, and it seems like, hey, you pay, for like a small business or medium business or something, you pay the $50. It's $50 a month, and you it can help connect like the phone tree to somebody's cell phone, somebody's desk phone, or like if you got remote workers in other countries, they can get the online, and it just has a lot of flexibility in how you want this phone tree to be handled. That's like a very rudimentary pitch. What would you add to that?
Yeah, no, it's right. It's a very, it's a business phone service, both for of course for calls, faxing, texting, all of those things, and a lot of other channels that we are adding at the moment, so that it's not just phone. That's why I'm a little hesitant saying it's a phone service, because it's really just communications now, and it's definitely going more in that direction. But it's very easy to manage, so you can sign up and you can literally set everything up and have everything up and running for a business with 20 employees or 2,000 employees within a few minutes, and manage everything yourself online. It's like drag and drop, very easy, but at the same time, really, really flexible and scalable. And that's kind of like the key. Oftentimes, you have products that are very easy to use, and they fail on also being flexible and scalable. Then they are very startup-y. And we were definitely like that 8 years ago. But as we've kind of grown and we've listened to our customers and we've gotten bigger and bigger customers in, the product has grown as well, and we've added these things that have now made it a full solution.
Yeah. So let's talk about big customers. On the website, I think I saw logos for like, again, Airbnb, Marriott, Samsung. What are some of the other big logos on the website there?
Facebook, Google, Lyft. Yeah, I don't even remember SoundCloud. There's a lot of, and it's always fun when we see those ones sign up out of the blue. I mean, we haven't spent $1 on advertising ever in the company history. We've all gotten it by good SEO and word of mouth, probably mostly word of mouth. And if you go look at our reviews, it's all 5 stars everywhere because we, again, have a product that's stable, and that's really the key. It needs to do what it needs to do and make sure that it's always up. It's always fun to see these big ones sign up. But yeah,
when you think about the principle of that complete reliability of being stable, what's something that you think other people miss there? Like, why are others not able to match your stability?
Well, I think there's several things to it. Like I said, the fact that we build everything ourselves also makes us 100% in control. So if there's a bug that causes something to go down ever so often, we can fix it. And we see it before our customers see it because we have 100%, we have monitors that constantly shows exactly what is giving an error in which part of the system. And then we have done it quite a few times before. I mean, we're not new. It's not like this is our first internet service that we built, none of us on the team. So we have experience building these high scalability platforms. And granted, it's not telecom. We've done things like video streaming and these kind of things before, and it's very similar technology-wise to what we're doing. So we have some good experience in running things that people depend on, and we take it very serious. Like I said, we're running it like an enterprise. We are taking uptime and testing and these kind of things very serious. And because we are 100% in control, we don't have to wait for a vendor to fix things if there's something that breaks.
Yeah. Thinking about acquiring, customers like the Facebook, Google, Airbnbs, whatever. I'm interested, how would you define product market fit?
That's a good one. It's something that we have just started actually focusing more on over the past, I would say, year. We have very much been product first for a long time. We also bootstrapped the company. We didn't take investors in because we wanted to build the perfect platform. We wanted to build it the way we want it and our customers want it. And then we have recently started preparing to actually raise some serious money and focus more on sales and marketing. So I would say the market fit has really just happened over time. It's really just been because we have listened to what our customers wanted and what we have seen the need was. What are the features? What are people actually needing out there and asking for? And then listen to that. And not listen to one customer asking for some weird feature that only that person wants, but actually listen to what is it the general group of users say that they want, and what is the features that they need, and then build a product around that. That's really been the thing. And then I feel like that has naturally created a product that fits in the market.
Yeah, when you think about people who they feel like they've got something good and they've got customers, but they're not getting quite the rapid adoption. They're not getting hundreds of thousands of users like yourself. What's a lever you think they should pull? What's a question you think they should ask themselves?
Well, I think you should definitely look at what kind of customers you have. So look and see if there's any kind of common denominator. And then try if there is, there probably is, if you're not getting that kind of adoption after a while, and if you're pouring money into marketing, then there probably is some kind of vertical that you're hitting so that you get some customers, but you don't get that broad range. And then look at seeing, is that good with you? Is that cool? If you like that, then try and listen and look at what kind of features and products that vertical wants and needs, and try and fit your product in there. Otherwise, if it's pretty broad, then and you're not getting the adoption, then there's something else wrong. It's probably either your marketing is not right. It could be. I mean, it takes time to learn that, or the product is lacking some kind of advantage over your competitors. That could be the price or the product itself.
Yeah, it sounds so simple, but I think so many of us are. Like when you say it that way, it sounds simple, it sounds obvious, it sounds like, oh yeah, right? And then you look at how most of us run our businesses and it's like, we're so busy doing the business, or we're so busy landing the next enterprise account that I'm not sure as many of us are slowing down and doing as good a job of that as we could, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot looking at your stuff over and over and over. Look at your website, look at your content, look at your product constantly. I mean, I'm obsessed with these kind of things. I mean, we redo our not the product, but our marketing material every year, pretty much, to try and optimize and fit and figure out what actually works, what doesn't, and look at the metrics and these kind of things. But yeah, it's right. It sounds easy, but it's a lot of work and it's a lot of grind. You know, I'm not gonna lie about that. I work many hours, and so does the entire team here. It's not like it's easy, but it's something that's really important if you want to grow. You can't just focus on your sales and focus on landing the next account. You gotta make sure that you stay relevant, that your product stays relevant, because then you're not gonna land any account. You might land this one if you focus all your energy there, but you're not gonna land the next 5.
I'm trying to think of like music analogies here, and you saying that is interesting. Of like, obviously we all have that music that we like, that we listen to from last decade or many decades ago, but being relevant feels pretty key to the music industry. Any other tips from the music business that you feel like have helped your approach building Telzio?
Yeah, so I actually had a discussion with a good friend of mine recently about this, because it occurred to me that a lot of my old colleagues in the DJ industry, and especially in the DJ industry, were in really high positions at big companies, C-level positions at huge international companies that you definitely know, and a lot of old DJs are in those positions. You know, like that was really odd to me that there was this recurring this pattern. So I had a talk with a friend about that, and I think what we really came to a conclusion with was that when you're a DJ, I'm not saying an artist, not like a singer or solo artist or a band, but in particular a DJ, you're very much on your own. You are your own artist, your own products. You are your own marketer, your own business manager. Everything is really falling back on you. Eventually, you'll get people around you to create that team when you get big enough, but 99% are their own manager and marketer, which means that you have to, in order to get to a certain level, you have to get good at both being an artist, being a musician, but also being a businessman. There's just certain things that you can't scale without. So I think it really comes down to that. That is a big parallel, at least for what I have gone through, and then on top of that, running a record label and these kind of things that has exposed me to certain things. But you're right about the staying relevant. That's really tough, especially today. It's very much tougher than it was when I was making music 10 years ago, and it was one of the reasons why I even stopped making music in the first place. Was like I was on tour all the time. I was playing gigs, and I didn't have time to sit down and be creative and make new music. And especially in electronic music, if you don't release anything every month or 2 months, then you're irrelevant after half a year. And I started feeling that, because I can't do what a lot of my colleagues do, where they have a laptop they bring on the plane and they make new songs there. I have to have everything in my studio neatly set up and all that. And I couldn't do that. So yeah.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that for how some of those DJ specific skills would be helpful. I think about some of my favorite innovation authors, like Stephen Johnson has a book, Where Good Ideas Come From. And he goes through history and he shows over and over how often it's like somebody's working on something by themselves, and then they go to get exposed to a whole bunch of ideas that they wouldn't otherwise. Then they go back and work on themselves, get exposed to a bunch of ideas. Or like IDEO, the guys that invented the mouse and all sorts of things for Steve Jobs at Apple. They have magazine racks in their offices of like the kind of magazines you maybe wouldn't normally pick up, because they're trying to like give themselves an idea they wouldn't normally come across. I love, I had Kirby Ferguson on the show. He's got this amazing video series called Everything is a Remix, where he goes through all the shots that all the shots of like Steve Jobs where he got ideas that became the iPhone, all the shots where George Lucas stole from this movie and this movie and this movie and remixed them to make Star Wars, which is original, but it's like an original remix, or goes through all the Led Zeppelin music and like goes through song after song after song where they got this idea, where they got this idea. And as soon as he points it out, it's like deadly obvious. But they brought enough artistry, and they weren't just plagiarizing someone. They were recombining in novel ways to make something original and obviously hugely magnetic for the rest of us. And isn't business so much of that? We've got to draw from so many different angles and remix it into something that is magnetic for a customer, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. There's no doubt. I mean, both music and business. I don't think, like you said yourself, Steve Jobs or anyone in the world ever have come up with something completely novel. Like there's always inspiration from something, and it's always something you draw on, which is the beautiful of all of it. You know, it's not like you can just think up something brand new out of the blue. That never happens. Everyone has some kind of baggage that they pull from.
You know, before I got into investment banking, when I was in mergers and acquisitions at Citi, originally I was in art school. I was an illustration major, and and I mean, there's nothing so crippling as an art student as thinking that you have to make stuff up from nothing. And like, it's so freeing once you finally realize like nothing comes from nothing. And inspiration is okay. Plagiarism is not okay, but inspiration is actually required. And it's totally. Just like reduces the anxiety by a million, you know?
It's true. Yeah. And you know, I'm not afraid of saying that, you know, all the music and things I've written and everything I've done is definitely inspired from something. I mean, my go-to way of writing a new song is really just listening to something I like a lot and trying to make the same thing, like literally try and make it sound exactly the same. But at some point, it starts drifting away from that. So I'll be doing that for the first 30 minutes, and then all of a sudden, it completely takes its own shape, and it is, after I'm done, you can't even hear it's the same thing. You know, like it's so I start out in one way, and hey, this sounds cool. Let me try and make that, and I can't make it sound the same. So, but I make it sound me, and you know, that's I think is really the key to most art and business. Yeah,
you know, this podcast is hopefully helpful to all sorts of kind of people, but it's really kind of aimed at like high growth CEOs. You know, and I think about this for whether it's remixing things to make our product, remixing things to make our internal leadership program, remixing things to make our marketing, right? Like what you just said is so interesting. I heard this great quote about, and I'm sure I'm going to mess it up, but it's like something like David Letterman tried to be Johnny Carson, but that's impossible. And in attempting to become Johnny Carson, he accidentally became David Letterman. And then Conan O'Brien was trying to be David Letterman, but it was impossible. And so he accidentally ended up Conan O'Brien, you know?
Yeah,
and this idea,
that's how it is.
It sounded so similar to what you were talking about.
Yeah, you can't, and you shouldn't try to force yourself into being something completely new. That you know, you see that sometimes, and that rarely sticks. Then you end up in some weird art project that no one really wants to to see or listen. You know, any business that falls through. You know, it's rare that a business starts with a product, comes out with a product that no one has ever seen before, and becomes a huge success. There's always something. I mean, whether it being Facebook, I mean, there was MySpace, there was a lot of other things before. It never starts from something brand new.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid of that. Don't copy, like you said, but don't be afraid of doing something that someone else has done before, and just do it better and in your way.
Well, and as a way to like get the party started so that you can eventually remix it into your own thing, right?
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about Facebook for a minute. So Facebook, Marriott, all these big brands. What advice do you have for CEOs that want to have those kind of clients, or maybe they've got a couple but they want to get more?
Well, that's a good question, because I'm not a great marketer or salesperson. I've adopted those talents, if you will, over the years, and I've learned it because I had to. But I would say have a good product. Make sure that your product is there and that it's priced reasonably. And there's a lot of things that goes into that part, because you know, is it a discount product? Then you need to, of course, have a discount, but it also needs to look discount. And there's nothing wrong with having a discount product at all. You can make a lot of money on that. That's just an approach, right? But you got to wrap it the right way. So there's a reason why a MacBook, when you get that, is in a really nice box, designed white, and it has like these little things you pull off to open the box. it needs to the wrapping needs to match the product, and as long as you do that, as long as you try to make your wrapping up to par with the product, and the product actually delivers what it promises, and that the product matches the wrapping, then you will get those kind of customers because they're looking for good products. It's not like we approached Facebook or any of the other businesses. We even tried, like they literally just came to our website and signed up, and we had a hard time figuring out how, getting them to even tell us how. It's really just about making sure that you have a product that's better than your competitors, and those kind of businesses, they do the same kind of due diligence as you do as a business. When you try to find a product that fits your need in any kind of way, whatever it is that you're looking for, you do some due diligence, I hope, and you compare a few different options, and you test them out and stuff like that. And then you go with the one that fits the bill, and that checks most boxes and has a price that matches those boxes. And those big businesses, they do the same thing. It's not like it's a magic thing with those kind of things. No.
Yeah. Let's switch gears. Let's talk about music again. Tell me one of the secrets to running a successful record label.
Oh, that's hard because I don't think mine was that successful. Well, I mean, we did release some songs, and I did sell it, and and we did have quite a few hits. So it's not like it was all bad. But I did come in a bad time. 2006, that was when Napster had just ruined everything, and before Spotify became a thing. So, but I was in the dip for sure. But I think for running a record label, it's really just about being in it for your love of whatever genre you're in. Of course, you can go run something like Sony, Warner, or Universal Music, and that's a complete different game because that's a multinational corporation playing in a different level. But a label itself, where you have, let's say, less than 20 artists that you release songs for, and that you primarily license to the major labels around the world outside of your own territory, that has to be for your own love and knowledge of music. So you have to have, of course, an ear for what is going to work in that particular genre. Now, mine was primarily dance music, and I was a DJ, so I not only had an ear for it, but I could also just test it. So I, took songs out and, hey, are people dancing? No, okay, maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't release that, right? So I had a way of doing that, and that's something that all labels do in certain ways, radio testing and those kind of things. But it has to be for your own interest, because running a label is not something that you're going to make a lot of money off of unless you hit it. Like you get one or two big ones, and then you can make some decent money until you grow as big as you need to sell those artists to the bigger labels, right? So. It's a tough business for sure, but also a lot of fun.
We're doing a mini series on the show called Hollywood Explained with one who's a CEO of a film finance fund and a producer who's produced big movies like The Dark Knight, Suicide Squad, American Hustle, big movies like that. Right? So on Friday, we were talking about this idea of kind of how the creative industries are a little different. Like, I think about being in real estate, like owning big commercial real estate buildings where it's primarily the asset, and you can like, who's your groundskeeper is a pretty interchangeable position, right? But was the building in the right place is the key decision, right? And
yeah, for sure.
And talking about making movies and how it's almost like we came up with the analogy of it being more like a pro sports team, where it's like it's not the stadium, it's can the person put the ball in the hoop kind of a thing, right? And in their case, it's like, do the people know the genre? Do the people know writing? Do the people know producing? Do the people know people, right? And then adding on top of that complexity of the art is like, can you marry the art and the business? And, especially for financing and for producing, where it's just, a movie producer is kind of like the CEO of a movie, right? And so it's this balance of like, attracting the artists who are really there for the art and maybe do or don't have that kind of business savvy, and balancing egos and opinions and taste and money and the accountants who don't really care about your art and your taste. They're here for the money, and kind of like multiple spinning plates there. Does that pro athlete analogy work for you, or do you see it differently?
Oh yeah, no, it's spot on. It's spot on. There's no doubt that, especially when you're talking about having a record label and working with artists and other labels, because the way it really works is that you need to go find some music to release, and the first ones usually come pretty easily because that's why you start the label in the first place. Like you have a relationship with either a band yourself or in, like my first signing was my own band. And then the next few were ones that I was working closely with already. So you have those relationships, but then you have to find new ones as you grow. You can't just rely on put all your eggs in one basket and hope that they're going to produce the next big hit. So you need to go out and find those ones. And those artists are, it's hard to find the ones that have the right skills, can put the ball in the hoop. And there's a lot more to it when it comes to music than being, in good physics and having that there's, again, are you a good musician? Are you a good artist? But do you have what it takes to be on stage? Do you have what it takes to be on tour? Are you gonna flake out? Are you gonna have a nervous neck breakdown? There's a lot of things you have to think about when you're working with artists, and artists are, in general, very hard to work with when it comes to these kind of things because they're artists, and you got to treat them that way. You got to allow them to be artists as well. So while you want them to be somewhat business savvy and understand that, hey, you are gonna show up to that gig even if you are sick and you just had your leg put off or whatever, there's no staying away, and finding people who understand that and who has the discipline is in fact for the first very, very hard to find, but then on the same time allowing them to be artists, be fragile, so that they can produce authentic results that are not just copying whatever is being dictated that the trend right now on TikTok says that you should produce, because then you're never going to have a hit. It's got to be you got to have that middle understanding of what should I be making right now it has commercial value, but at the same time be authentic and be you. Those are really hard to find. And then comes the whole team around it. Like you said, it's not just the artist. Then comes that whole, everyone on the record label who does different things in marketing and sales and in A&R, finding the right artists, managing the artists, and so on and so on. So it's definitely a big business, and it's a big wheel that needs to be turning when it comes to these kinds of things. And it's very similar to athletes for sure.
Yeah. My guess, so thinking about like getting gigs where you're performing for 180,000 people, my guess is being a great musician is not enough. That you have to have all those things that you just mentioned and be good at building relationships. Is that a fair guess?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, I touched on this thing with when you were a DJ, which I was at that point, and I was getting these gigs. You got to be very business minded. So you got to have that people's person or people's skill to be able to make the relationships with the people who will put you on those kind of shows and who will even look at you and look at your skills and look at what you've done enough to say, okay, yeah, that guy is actually someone who can perform and the people would actually come see, and so that's part of it. And the likability, like you're just a one-man industry and a one-man enterprise really when you're doing these kind of things. So there's a lot of sides to it. And then it's really also just about grinding, because when I got that gig, I was playing 380 something gigs in that year. That's more than one a day, right? And I burned out eventually. That was I couldn't make new music, like I said before. I was limiting myself from being creative and being relevant, and at the same time I was just accepting every offer I got for performing, and I just said, I had told my booking agent at that time that, hey, yeah, just say yes to everything that comes in, as long as it can be scheduled with the travel and so on. I'm fine. So I was living in a suitcase, and I was never home. I was playing too many gigs, and it was not fun anymore. It was not, everything was the same, burning out. So yeah, it's a balance, and I think it's very few people who can make that. I couldn't.
Yeah. When you think when you think about bringing some of those skills now to business, and especially something that is stable and scalable, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
can you give us an example of, how some of those, the likability and the relationship building has helped you in business?
Yeah, I think the main thing for us being an internet business or internet-based business is really more about our team and internal relationships, and making sure that everyone likes working together, and that there's this camaraderie, which is hard, when you're a distributed team. I mean, we just downsized our headquarters office to less than half of what we were before, because people are working remotely now, and we have started hiring more people all over the world, and with that comes some challenges in terms of making sure that people have the same, like they're on the same team, and having this, I would say, camaraderie enough to being able to allow everyone to post a meme that might be slightly offensive to someone who never heard of, I don't know, who doesn't know us, and knowing where that limit is, and so on and so on. So there's some learning that we had to do there, and I think, yeah, it's definitely tough with this. Yeah.
Interesting. So I'm interested, you have accomplished more than so many people now in more than one field. What do you attribute some of that success to? What do you think you do differently?
I'm extremely stubborn, and yep, I wouldn't say persistent. I'm stubborn. that's the word, and almost a little naive too. I think that's my qualities. I have raging ADD, so I didn't realize that or I didn't even know about it, that it was a thing until a few years ago, and understanding that and learning how to deal with that definitely brought some perspective into how I can grow as a business person and a human in general, and then on top of that, that gives me that ability to really learn and hone in on certain things and become really, really good at things I'm interested in. But adding to that with the persistence or the stubbornness, as I think it is really, that is some of the main things that probably has contributed to my success, because I don't give up, and if people tell me this can't be done, then that just works as fuel. You should never do that if you don't want me to succeed. I'm going to show you that it can be done for sure.
Yeah, it's funny to me that ADD gets called a disorder. That it's a deficit disorder. I think of it like, I saw a great thing last week about, I think it was Casey Neistat had this video, attention deficit advantage. He has this video.
Yeah.
But a couple of my favorite books, I don't know if you're much of a book guy, but Driven by Douglas Brackman. He talks about how many entrepreneurs and Navy SEALs have it and how to harness it. I really love a book called Hunters in a Farmer's World, which is great. I started a new book this week, ADHD 2.0 by John Rady and the Harvard professor.
I haven't seen that.
And it's interesting, this idea of I love the book Rocket Fuel, Gino Wickman and Mark Winters, right? Mm-hmm. And that first chapter about visionaries is pretty high overlap with ADD, right? It's this idea of just know yourself. Yes, you live amongst a whole bunch of farmers who overvalue their skill set and don't, and just see the ways that you're not as good as them at those things. And so they've labeled you as a deficit. I mean, let's face it, we could probably label everybody without ADD as a creativity deficit disorder, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But because 97% of the world or 95% of the world isn't like us, I can definitely think of times that I was invited to feel less about myself and kind of be down on myself that I wasn't good at some of those farming skills. And instead, I love, with this guy who built ButcherBox on here, and he bootstrapped it. So I think he's worth $2 billion. Okay. Mike Salguero. And he says that his big thing is who, not what. Instead of what am I going to do to solve this problem, it's who can I get to do this for me? And you can hire a lot of farmers to do that work. But somebody has got to architect it. Some crazy person who looked over the other side of the mountain, didn't stay home on the farm. They went and looked over the other side of the mountain to come up with the new ideas and do the remixing, right?
Exactly.
Has got to come up with it. So, we kind of need all different types to get it done. But for me, like reading these books that help me feel like ADD is a superpower, not a deficit, it kind of like becomes self-fulfilling prophecies for me, at least.
Exactly. No, I so agree. I don't see it as a deficit. I don't see it as a diagnosis as that or like a bad thing at all. It's definitely a superpower. There's no doubt in my mind. I grew up being told by teachers that, or my parents were told by teachers, yeah, he's really smart, but he's lazy. And that was really odd because I wasn't lazy. I've never been lazy. I work my ass off 24/7. And I always, even as a kid, I had things, like I said, I started my first real company when I was 14. And even before that, I was a reporter on national TV and radio in Denmark.
What age did you start that?
I think it was 9.
Wow.
9 or 10.
How did that happen?
Yeah. Again, I was doing something else. I was making videos for fun with my friends, little movies, and some local newspaper picked up the story and wrote about it, and then local radio made something about it, and then national radio picked that story up and raised something about it, and they thought I was interesting, so they put me on as a weekly reporter for a kids show where I was traveling around and interviewing other kids, and all of a sudden I was promoted, if you will, in the same network to TV and doing the same thing there. So I've always been doing things, right? I can't sit still. I can sit still. That's the thing. Like, because back when I was a kid, you had ADHD, and that was the one where you run backwards up the wall and can't sit still. And I never had that problem. That was not an issue. I can definitely focus, and if there's something I'm interested in, I will hyper focus on it, and that's, I think, is a superpower, right? So I might not be as good at focusing on things I'm not interested in, but you can either get other people to do it, or at least be aware of it, and then try and create the conditions around it.
Yeah, I think like I've got a really low tolerance for boredom, right? Mm-hmm. Like in art school, I would like procrastinate, and then I would just stay up all night the night before and do the work and still get an A, right? But like that would mean I'd be like me and a paintbrush, or me and like I remember doing pointillism once, where it's like literally one dot at a time for the whole thing. And and I would do like 9-hour stretches, or like I work all through the night kind of things, right? And it's like it is a superpower to be able to hyper focus on certain things, but it gets away from me when I lie to myself about like my business partner and I were having a talk last week because he was a little annoyed with me that I said I would do some collections on for some of our clients, and I was like, because I had all these good intentions to do it, even though that's like kryptonite for me, It's like that and writing proposals. I should never be writing proposals for clients. Like I'll talk and talk and talk, but I should not be writing the proposal.
Yeah, I have all the ideas, right?
I should not be writing the proposal. And when I lie to myself, be like, oh yeah, I'll take care of that. That gets me into trouble, because like boredom and I hate it. Like I'm not very good at making myself do those things. But then okay, we need the new $1 million client. Like I go all day, all night, drive the 12 hours, get on a plane, do the, like those kind of things. I just got to be honest with myself about the things that I suck at.
It's spot on what you're saying. And that is what I was saying about, like, I didn't have that understanding until a few years ago, where actually one of my colleagues told me, hey, maybe you should take a test, because there might be something here, like she knew me better than I did. And lo and behold, it was, full score pretty much. And I went to 3 different psychiatrists because I don't trust that industry. You just want to medicate as many as possible, but there was no doubt. And, all the boxes kind of just checked. And I started having this awareness and understanding why these tax calculations that should have been done 6 months ago still weren't done, because even though they take 3 hours to do, but I could stay up for 24 hours and code some little insignificant thing that I was really interested in. So that awareness and not lying to yourself is definitely something. And you know, when I look back, even when I in my music career and even when I had my label, I burnt bridges at certain points because I wanted to do everything out of good heart. You know, I wanted to help everyone. I wanted to do everything and I knew I could do it. But when I lose interest in it, it becomes really hard.
Yeah,
So
I have to re-listen to that book. The billionaire Gary Keller from Keller Williams wrote this book, The One Thing, which is kind of like the 80-20 principle, but for your calendar, right? And it's like, he really convinced me like to start treating things like dominoes and quit trying to like, Jess, don't try to do all the dominoes at once. Put them in order. Like, what's the one domino that's going to make the next thing easier or relevant? And I have to read that book. I have to read parts of that book like on like a weekly basis to remind myself, because I want to do all the dominoes at once, and it's just like it's a bad recipe for me.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I suffer from that for sure. I want to do, you know, product wise as well. I want to build the best products out there. I'm super focused on making sure that we have the best. But you know, wanting to do all the features at once and release everything so it's perfect from the beginning, that's really hard when you have ADD, and it's something you have to be aware of and learn. Not, you know, enough is enough. See, right now.
This is I know we're out of time here. We can finish up, but this is why this show is for high growth entrepreneurs. It's because it's partially like good ideas for your business and partially like therapy. Like, you're not the only one. You don't feel bad about yourself that you haven't worked on that tax thing that was like actually really important, Jess. You really should have done that 6 months ago. The lesson here, folks, is hire the accountant. Just pony up, pay the cash, quit lying to myself. Anyway,
and create a team that fills out those gaps and make sure that you have those around you and keep them around you. Yeah.
Well, listen, this is great. Thanks for making time to do this. It's been a super fun conversation.
Love to be here. That was fun. I love it.
And why don't you give Roy the website if they want to look at a better option for their phones and communications?
Telzio, Telz as in zebra, io.com, Telzio. Go press the button. There's a trial, and that's really our thing, is once you try out and you sign up for that trial and try it yourself, you usually stick around. You're going to love it. It's fun to play with it.
Awesome. Okay, folks, thanks for listening.